What's your biggest concern heading into this Ohio State game this weekend? And it's funny because I think what the eyes have showed us last is always a dangerous thing. And I think if you go with what the eyes showed you last, Ohio State was far more impressive in their game against Minnesota than Michigan was in their game against Maryland. Now, Maryland's a better team than Minnesota, and Maryland it was only 1 year ago that Ohio State had a 3-point fourth quarter lead against Maryland the week before they hosted Michigan. So, they're tough in this spot, and they're basically, Maryland's the same team as they were last year. But it's 11-0 versus 11-0. It's two top three teams. Michigan, maybe the biggest concern should be they're a better football team all around when Jim Harbaugh is there coaching. It has everybody revert back to their old roles, and there's a reason why. He's considered a pretty darn good coach. But the JJ injury thing, the way it's looming, JJ's at his best when you mix in the run game. They ran him once last week, and I don't even know if it was intentional. I can't remember. I think it might have been a zone read, and he pulled the football and kept it. So, whatever the injury is that he suffered in that game against Penn State, he was effective on the ground prior to that happening. I think pass rush has become a bit of a concern, and not Michigan's pass rush, their ability to fend off the opposing team's pass rush. But what stands out for you?
Well, to me, I think it's how much they'll miss Harbaugh. And it's a real thing, obviously. And it's what kind of impact does that have? And during the week, it's one thing to be preparing for this team, and I'm sure he's going to do a fantastic job of preparing the team. But when you're away from the team on the day of the game, that absence is noticeable. And I'm sure Sharon Moore's doing a great job, but I think we've seen over the last couple of weeks, there is an impact. How big of an impact is it going to be? Is it something that will re-galvanize this team and they get over the hump or not? But from a X's and O's standpoint, I would be concerned about Travion Henderson and his ability to run the football, because there have been times this year where Michigan hasn't been able to completely shut down the run like you think they would. There have been drives. It's not like it hasn't happened over the course of a game, I don't think yet this year. But there have been several drives in several games where you're like, wow, what is going on? They're not able to slow things down. Now, they've been able to get past that because the talent is just far superior to the other side of the football. But this is Ohio State. This is different. And, Ohio State, you kind of have to pick your poison a little bit because they do have the best receiver in college football, one of the best players in college football, Marvin Harrison, as well. So do you pick your poison a little bit on the defense? The good news for Michigan is their defense is really stout. And I feel like from a pass defense standpoint, I think they can get after the quarterback, and I think they might fluster the quarterback, Kyle McCord, a little bit into making him either throw the ball before he wants to or to have him freeze a little bit because he isn't as experienced as quarterbacks they've faced in the past with Ohio State. And maybe they can take advantage of that. Plus, Will Johnson's outstanding. Mm-hmm. And if he's going to match up with Marvin Harrison, that's get your popcorn and enjoy it. It should be a really good matchup.
You hit on something there as far as, one of the things that I think Michigan will be able to do that will help them a lot. And that is harass Kyle McCord. Get after Kyle McCord. And the Michigan pass rush, they don't have that one guy, but they kind of have waves of guys that can be a problem. And so there's, Kenneth Grant had a huge game at Maryland. We've seen Josiah Stewart have big games. Braden McGregor, Derek Moore,
Graham,
Mason Graham is a horse in the middle of that defensive line. They've got guys, but it's a matter if they can harass Kyle McCord. So and Will Johnson versus Marvin Harrison Jr. feels like a future NFL matchup, and you just match them up and try to make Ohio State one-dimensional because, Travion Henderson being healthy and running the way he's been running, Gator, is this definitely could be a factor. And this is starting to feel more and more to me like a bit of an old school, lower scoring Michigan-Ohio State game. We've seen 60-plus points in the last couple of years, and I think this has more of a 20-17, 21-17 kind of feel to it.
Kind of grind it out. I'm with you on that. I look at this, and it's the other thing to worry about with Ohio State is their tight end play. And Michigan's got good tight end play too. So both of those can kind of be equalizers. But I don't know if Michigan's advantage, I think, is on the defensive side, and I think Ohio State's advantage it does come with the running game. But again, you're playing to Michigan's strength, which is that defense. But what does Michigan have offensively into Ohio State's defense? Sharon Moore or Jim Harbaugh, I guess, has said that the JJ's healthy as he's been over the last couple of weeks. He's ready to go. That's good news for Michigan fans because he does need to make plays with his feet to extend it and perhaps just take off and go. And that could be a problem for Ohio State. They do have talent at tight end. They do have a solid core of receivers. And, of course, their running back tandem can go off at any moment. They haven't really done it this year, say for like one game. But they are capable. We've seen them do it. It just, is it going to happen against Ohio State? I don't know if it's going to happen against Ohio State.
From an unnamed texter, you guys think they need to be more creative on offense? In my opinion, they will lose if they're not more creative. All the games Harbaugh has missed are the worst offensive games this season. Why don't they have JJ run more versus use tight end more? Well, I'll start with this. JJ was running the ball quite a bit and quite effectively in the Penn State game. And I felt like that was part of their game that they were saving for bigger games. And he got hurt. So if he is truly closer to 100% or at 100%, that'd be huge for Michigan. As far as, reverses, I mean, they've run some of that, and they're getting Samaj Morgan the football. Samaj Morgan feels like he is a developing weapon, giving early, Ronnie Bell vibes. But I think he might even be better than that long term. And maybe there's a better comparison. Use the tight ends more. Man, they use their tight ends a lot. So I think A.J. Barner and Colston Loveland get used plenty.
Why do you think running has been so different this year? Like, just look at the game log last year for Blake Corum, where he had an outstanding campaign and had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games of 100 yards or more, including a 243-yard effort against Maryland last year. And he's had 2 100-yard games this year. What's the difference there?
Well, some of it is chalked up to not playing more than 2.5, 3 quarters, but it doesn't look the same. And I don't know what it is. The running game is good, but it felt like they went into the Ohio State game last year with a great rushing attack. And I'm not sure this is a great rushing attack. It just feels like it's a good rushing attack. It feels like it can get them yards, but I don't know. It's a great question. The bar's been set so high, back-to-back Joe Moore award-winning offensive lines, but the Michigan has done a lot of damage through the air and put up some gaudy numbers through the air. So I don't know. It's a very valid question.
Yeah, because the Big Ten schedule, he's got 2 games where he's averaged more than 5 yards a carry. He had the game against Minnesota, which is only 9 carries and 69 yards, and then the big game against Penn State, 26 for 145. That was a 5.6 per carry. But otherwise, 3.4 against Maryland, 2.9 against Purdue, 3.9 against Michigan State, 4.0 against Indiana, and 4.6 against Rutgers and Nebraska.
They don't have a ton of big runs. Like this year,
they don't.
There's not that 60-yarder. There's not that 50-yarder.